Hey, what's up guys? Today, I'll show you a post-apocalyptic film, 28 Days Later. Spoiler ahead, watch out and take care. The movie begins when a group of animal rights activists breaks into a science facility to gather evidence of animal cruelty since the lab experimented with chimpanzees. Unexpectedly, a scientist comes in, sees the intruders, and runs to phone security about the break-in. One of the activists catches up and drags the scientist to explain the situation. The scientist explains that they're trying to understand and study the chimps infected with a highly contagious virus, which he describes as rage. None of the activists believes the scientist and frees one of the chimps. Without hesitation, the infected primate runs toward the female activist and attacks her. Ironically, one activist kills the monkey to save the female activist, but it's too late. She's already infected and starts vomiting blood. The infection spreads fast through its victims, quickly turning them into unpredictable zombies. 28 days later, a bicycle courier named Jim hazily wakes up from a coma in an abandoned hospital. He gets up and finds a way out of the locked operating room. After finding something to wear, Jim continues to look around in hopes of finding anyone. Jim even tries the phones, but to no avail. After getting his hands on something to drink, he walks out of the hospital and into the eerie and empty streets of London. Still not a soul in sight despite passing by London's most iconic and supposedly crowded places. Eventually, he discovers a missing bulletin board with hundreds of missing person posters. Soon, Jim ends up in a church where he sees corpses for the first time. He then calls out, hoping to find anyone alive. A couple of men pop up from the sea of dead bodies and stare at Jim like he was dinner. Still confused about everything, Jim walks towards the loud banging noise in the side and sees a priest acting rather weird. Jim senses the danger and hits the approaching priest with a plastic bag. He then runs away from the church, but is quickly followed by aggressive zombies. Later, while being chased by the infected, two masked survivors save Jim by throwing Molotov cocktails at the infected. One of the survivors then sets the gas pipe open, prompting the gas station to explode after a burning zombie goes near it. With little choice, Jim follows his saviors into their hideout, where the two introduce themselves as Blue Eyes and Selena. Jim shares his story that he worked as a bicycle courier when he got into a car accident. The next thing he knows, he wakes up in a hospital with absolutely no clue what in the world happened. Selena then informs Jim that at first, there were small-scale riots happening all over the country. When they got more frequent, people figured it was a virus in the blood that got people violent. Suppose you get bitten, or any infected blood gets into one's system through the eyes and mouth. In that case, you're basically one of the infected. Blue Eyes adds that the government has collapsed, and no police nor army could help stop the spread. Jim is the first uninfected person they've seen in nearly a week. With that said, Jim thinks of his parents and is determined to see them. Both survivors inform Jim that their families are dead, and Jim's family is most likely dead. Nonetheless, Jim wants to see for himself. The next day, the three travel on foot and soon arrive at Jim's place. They enter the house, and the three could smell rotting flesh on the way up. Jim immediately runs to a room and finds his parents' corpse lying in bed with his picture as a boy in the middle. His mother and father killed themselves by overdosing on sleeping pills. It's a relatively peaceful death compared to others. Jim then reads the letter written on the back of the photo and starts crying. Later, with a few hours left before sundown, the three agree to stay at Jim's place for the night. They all decided to sleep in the same room. In that way, it is safer, but Jim cannot fall asleep. He lights up a candle, looks around the house, and reminisces on memories with his parents. Not soon after, the infected see the light emitting from inside the house and attack Jim. Blue Eyes and Selena wake up to help the poor man, taking one infected each. When the coast clears, Selena asks Jim if he was bitten. Jim inspects his body and sees no bites. Blue Eyes, however, has a large wound on his arm. After Selena sees the injury, she immediately swings her machete at Blue Eyes, ending his blue life. The same night, Selena and Jim leave the house, searching for another hideout. They spot a flat with the Christmas lights on and decide to check it out. After arriving at the place, they find their way up barricaded with shopping carts, which prove useless because moments later, two infected quickly pass through the barricade and run after them. Luckily, a man in full riot gear named Frank stops the infected. After Frank introduces himself and his daughter, Anna, the man of the house offers them something to drink to celebrate a newfound friendship. Later that night, Selena shares with Jim that Frank and Hannah seem desperate. Selena explains that she won't hesitate to leave them if the father and daughter would slow them down, but Jim thinks otherwise. He believes they are good people, and it would be good for them to form a team. The following day, Frank shows Jim the rooftop, with loads of empty buckets and containers to get rainwater. But it hasn't rained in 10 days, and their water supply is almost depleted. Next up, Frank turns on a wireless radio and lets Selena and Jim hear the recorded radio broadcasts of soldiers offering refuge and answer to the infection somewhere northeast of Manchester. Frank then discloses his plan that they need to go down there, but he needs Selena and Jim's help because if something happens to him, at least his daughter will not be alone. Selena argues that for all they know, the soldiers who recorded the broadcast might be dead, or worse, they might die trying. And she's right, it's a hard gamble. But Hannah reasons that they'll die anyway if they stay in the city. Given the numbers of infected and low water supply, it's worth taking a try. In the end, the team leaves the building, using the taxi cab Frank used as his day job before the apocalypse. They pass through the city ruins and stop at a tunnel. They hesitate for a minute because nobody knows what might be lurking in the dark underpass. But it's the direct route, and circling around would mean additional risk, so they decide to take a gamble once again and pass through the tunnel. Later, they encounter a barricade deep in the tunnel. Frank speeds up, drives over the bumpy blockade, and makes it to the other side. After a short distance, the front tire blows up. To make matters worse, Jim hears some echo in the distance. A colony of rats emerges from the shadows, apparently running away from the infected. Shortly in time, Frank orders Jim and Selena to lift the car so Hannah can change the tires. The mindless infected are fast approaching and are about to swarm them. Fortunately, they manage to change the tires and get away just in time before the infected can get them. Soon after, they pass by a truck near a store. Frank sips out the fuel, while Jim looks around inside the shop. He discovers a couple of bodies, including that of an infant. As soon as he makes some noise, an infected attacks him from behind. But Jim is fully prepared for the assault and fends off the attacker. He wasn't just prepared for the infected to be a young boy. Nonetheless, he finishes the job and goes out of the store to regroup with the others. The four continue their journey and take advantage of the quiet countryside to enjoy their food. After going through life and death situations together on several occasions, the four get closer. They spend the night at the same place before continuing with their voyage. Early the next day, they continue to make their way towards northeast of Manchester, just as the recorded broadcast instructed. Soon, they arrive at the said blockade. Like many other places, there aren't any signs of life. There are no soldiers, just an empty blockade with several military installations, but nothing too special. Frank starts getting upset and goes away from the others to be alone. A bit later, a crow sitting on top of a corpse begins making noise. The disappointed Frank tries to shoo it away, but after he kicks the gate below the corpse, a single drop of blood gets into his eye. At the same time, Hannah finds her father and tries to comfort him, but Frank knows it's only a matter of time before he becomes an aggressive and mindless creature. He then pushes his daughter away and runs in the other direction. Jim and Selena arrive to help, only to realize that Frank is infected. Jim is about to hit Frank with the bat when soldiers emerge from their hiding place and starts firing at Frank, killing him instantly. The soldiers escort the remaining three to their base, hidden deep in the forest. As soon as they arrive at the base, their surviving soldiers are commanded by the major, who introduces himself and welcomes the civilian refugees at their camp. After a hot shower, Jim talks to Selena about Hannah's situation. In the heat of the moment, the two unlikely friends tongue massage, but Selena stops before it can get even more serious. Later, Jim goes for a walk to cool his boiling hormones when he meets the commander. The major opens up that he does have the answer for the infection. It's not what Jim and the others might expect. First, the major shows Jim around their makeshift camp. It's an open flat terrain around the house, which is full of landmines. Second, the major then shows Jim the insides of the kitchen, where a couple of soldiers are preparing supper. Lastly, they go outside, where the major introduces Jim to the answer to infection, Mailer, who was once a member of their squad and got infected days ago. Now he is tied up in chains and intentionally kept alive for the major to learn about the infected, like how long they'll last before starving to death. Later that night, their supper is interrupted when they hear an explosion. The troops get in position and start firing at the infected running towards their base. With all that firepower, the infected stand no chance. After wiping out a horde of infected, the soldiers go back into the house and start aggressively teasing Selena. Jim tries to save Selena, but is quickly overpowered. In good conscience, the sergeant punches the aggressor to help Jim and Selena. Before things get out of hand, the major steps in to stop the fight and whispers at one of the soldiers to slow down. Jim then confronts the major after the incident, and the officer makes a confession. It turns out, weeks ago, the major found one of his soldiers with a gun in his mouth as they had no future. The major thinks the thing he should do to maintain his men's morale is give them women, and women will give their men a hopeful future. So he ordered his men to set up the broadcast to attract human survivors and promised his troops women. He did what he had to do to keep his men going. After hearing what the major has said, Jim runs over to Selena and Hannah to get them. But on the way out, Jim gets knocked out. When Jim wakes up, the sergeant again comes to their rescue. But the sergeant is going up against several men and is easily overpowered. The Major then appears and offers Jim to join their ranks, but Jim declines. And so, the Major orders to get Jim too. Not soon after, Jim and the sergeant are escorted through the forest and into their execution spot. When they arrive, one of the escort soldiers attaches a bayonet to his gun, but the other escort kills the sergeant first using his rifle, which prompts the two to fight. Thinking quickly, Jim uses the opportunity to hide and jump over the fence. After making a distance, Jim takes a breather lying down on the ground. From there, he notices a plane in the sky. At this state, the Major orders his men to watch Hannah and Selena change clothes. The men are rough around the edges. In order to get what she wanted, Selena kisses one of the soldiers and requests to leave them alone for a minute or two, and the soldiers comply. As soon as the men leave the room, Selena immediately offers Hannah drugs to numb the pain of what's about to come. But one of the soldiers runs back to smack the pills away. Before the man can get rough with Selena, the siren sounds off from the blockade. Rain starts pouring hard. It's just what Jim needed, a perfect cover. The Major and one of his men go to the blockade to find and eliminate Jim. But with tactical positioning, Jim kills one of the soldiers and spooks the Major into walking back to base. It's evening. Jim makes it back to the base to free Mailer from his chains and wreak havoc inside the mansion. When the infected get to its first victim, Selena and Hannah use the opportunity to escape, but don't make it far. Two other soldiers hear the scream to check it out, but find the two ladies trying to escape. Soon after, they spot Mailer going after one of their companions. Later in the kitchen, the cowardly soldier hides in one of the cabinets. Mailer gets in the same kitchen looking for its prey. Another soldier with a gun tries to kill Mailer, but unexpectedly, a recent infected gets to him first. The soldier hiding in the cabinet goes out and tries to escape, but Jim is expecting him and kills him. Meanwhile, the Major makes it back and sees one of his men dead. At the same time, Hannah wanders off in the dark corridor to find her family photo and then hides behind the mirror when an infected charges in. Not an hour in, the number of the infected grows rapidly as another soldier gets bitten. On the other hand, Jim spots Selena being held hostage by another soldier. When the opportunity arises, Jim runs to the soldier. He kills him by banging his head against the wall and digging his thumbs through the soldier's skull. Because of the darkness, Selena isn't sure who her savior is, and in order to protect herself, she grabs her machete. Before she can take a swing, she realizes it's Jim and then gives him a torrid tongue massage. Their smelly moment gets ruined when Hannah hits Jim's head with a bottle because she thinks Jim is biting Selena. Afterward, the three run out of the mansion and into Frank's cab. When Jim opens the door, the Major cries out that all of his men are dead and shoots at Jim. Meanwhile, Hannah reacts quickly by taking the wheel and backing the car towards the mansion door. Soon after, an infected pulls the Major from the back window and starts attacking him. Hannah then drives forward to let Selena and Jim in. The three survivors then make their escape. 28 days later, in their new hideout in a remote cottage, Jim fully recovers after Selena removes the bullet from his stomach. Jim heads downstairs and sees Selena working on the sewing machine. However, Hannah suddenly barges in and tells the two that she heard a plane coming. The three then rush outdoors and unfurl a giant fabric banner spreading out on the meadow, adding the final letter to the word hello. This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.